2451 Mirage City Noir. Sunny dreamed a nightmare. In that nightmare, he lived in a dying world where grotesque monsters were real, people possessed supernatural abilities, and humanity was on the verge of being snuffed out by the encroaching darkness. The world was one vast battlefield, and every day, countless lives were lost in the bloody battle for survival. Sunny himself was one of the strongest people in that world, having clawed his way to the pinnacle of power through mud, blood, heartbreak, and thorns of betrayal. He was buckling under the crushing weight of responsibility and carrying the cruel burden of his own past sins. He also had a smoking hot, stunning, drop-dead gorgeous girlfriend. Sunny could somewhat accept the existence of monsters and superpowers, but that last detail had really clued him into the fact that it was all a dream. He was woken up by the blaring sounds of the alarm. Wake up, Sunny. Wake up, Sunny. Wake up, Sunny. Shit. Grabbing his phone, he fumbled to turn the alarm off and then sat up, looking around with groggy, bloodshot eyes. His room was dark and messy, full of stale air and empty bottles. The TV was on, showing a colorful commercial for Valor Group's new extravagant mall. The young CEO was cutting the red ribbon in front of a cheering crowd, his simple smile blinding the camera. Sunny stared at the TV for a while, deep darkness nestling in his eyes, then tossed his phone at it. The screen shattered, and a net of cracks distorted the smiling face on it, making it seem as if he was staring at a broken mirror. Sunny was suddenly wide awake. No, shit. He jumped off the bed, sending several empty bottles rolling across the floor, and hurried to the TV. The screen of his phone was cracked, as well, but luckily, it was still in working condition. Sunny checked the time and the date, then let out a relieved sigh and slowly stood up. Still reeling from the damn nightmare, Sunny muttered a few curses and walked to the window. Opening the shutters, he grimaced from the light and looked outside. The dim lilac radiance of the early dawn washed over his pale body, his toned muscles, a scattering of scars decorating it like badges of dishonor, and a frightening tattoo of a black serpent coiling around his arms and torso. Not exactly what one would expect from a decorated police officer, but Sunny had lived a tumultuous life before finding the straight path. Outside the window, the city was obscured by a curtain of rain. Cars were rushing to outrun the morning traffic, leaving trails of scarlet glow in their wake. Here and there, red neon crosses stood out against the twilight sky like beacons for lost souls, and all around them, countless shops and restaurants were opening their doors like temples to greed and gluttony. Above it all, glass skyscrapers stood like towering cathedrals. There, in the bowels of conglomerate offices, dwelled the real power. The streets were grimy, the apartment buildings were decrepit, and the people were worn down, confined to the narrow pavements by the traffic while walking to their destinations with glassy eyes. Something about it all seemed strangely off, as if the world of his nightmares was much more real. There are no barriers surrounding the city. It was such a strange thought, and yet, Sunny could not get rid of the feeling that there were supposed to be enormous air filtration barriers on the horizon. But what for? I must have really lost it. In any case, the sun was rising above Mirage City. It was time to face a new day. Today, Sunny made a reluctant effort to look presentable. He took a shower, shaved, and found the least wrinkled clothes he had. Black jeans, a gray t-shirt, and an inconspicuous jacket. The clothes hid his sharp edge, but he must have still been something in his gaze, because a drunk loitering at the back of the building reeled back from just one glance. Sunny watched him stagger away with a cold, somber expression. The man seemed like a genuine drunk, but one never knew, it paid to be careful. Once the swaying figure disappeared around the corner, Sunny climbed into his old, battered car and put the key into the ignition. As he drove along the city streets, he could not help but think of the dark, desolate coastal highway of the Antarctic Center. No, that had happened in another nightmare. This was reality, so why was he thinking about such dreadful things? The radio was playing a catchy tune, reminding him that, apart from having a smoking hot girlfriend, he was also friends with a genuine pop star in those dreams. On top of that, he owned a thriving business, lived in a castle, was watching over a lovable little sister, and played the flute. What the actual hell? Dreams were truly a bizarre place. Sunny was not really a person with a rich imagination, though. How did his subconscious even imagine all these things? Shaking his head, he stopped at a traffic light and struggled against the paranoid feeling that every driver on the road was staring at him. Some time later, Sunny reached his destination. It was a prestigious psychiatric hospital on the outskirts of the city. Locking his car, he walked across a small park to the entrance and showed his pass to the security guard. Many affluent people received treatment in this seemingly idyllic hospital, so security was really tight here. The stunning building was no different from a fortress, really, and there were many places inside where regular people like himself weren't allowed. As for Sunny himself, he was not an affluent person. However, he was a civil servant in a situation that put the higher-ups in an awkward position, so they sent him here for mandatory psychiatric counseling. That had been months ago. And today, God's willing, was going to be his last session. If everything went well, he was going to be reinstated and return to work. And just in time, Sunny had a feeling that the bastard he had been pursuing for so long was going to strike again, soon. As Sunny was led inside, he caught himself on having used the word, gods, plural, and frowned. Get a grip, damn it. He could not mess up today. Soon, he found himself sitting in a comfortable chair and facing his therapist. His therapist was some kind of big deal in the shrink world despite being relatively young. She was quiet and extremely professional, so despite the mandatory nature of their relationship, Sunny did not dislike her a lot. The woman just sort of sat there silently while he talked about whatever was on his mind most of the time, so there was little to dislike. Well, there was one thing. His therapist really had no business being so goddamn beautiful. It was surreal, really, how breathtaking she was, not to mention distracting. Her skin was pure white alabaster, her eyes were like two onyx gems, and her features were almost inhumanly flawless. It was as though she had not been born, but actually cut from stone by a mad sculptor. As a result, what should have been beautiful looked a bit eerie, instead, haunting, even. Her usual lack of emotion only made the overall impression more disturbing. Meeting her indifferent gaze, Sunny forced out a smile. "Good morning, Doc." She looked at him evenly, and then smiled softly. The smile transformed her face, making it utterly tantalizing, almost painful to look at. It was like looking at something holy, a living saint, maybe. "Good morning, Detective. Would you like a coffee?" For some reason, Sunny felt a sense of profound wrongness when he heard the hauntingly beautiful therapist talk. Also, for some reason, he felt compelled to answer her question honestly. Sunny shrugged. Sure, why not? Like every other calamity in his life, this catastrophe started with the smile of a beautiful woman and a cup of coffee. 2452 Red Pool. The coffee tasted heavenly. It was strange, really. Sunny had been suffering from insomnia for a while now, surviving on sleeping pills and still having nightmares every time he did fall asleep. Perhaps as a result, everything felt tasteless to him, but whenever his therapist offered him coffee, he could not help but enjoy it. So, where do I start? As she opened her notebook to silently take notes, Sunny sighed. I don't get those recurrent nightmares often, anymore. He still saw them every time he slept, but he rarely slept, so that could hardly be called often. The world is sort of annoying, but I don't get irrationally angry either. It feels like I have a firmer grasp on myself. He had smashed his TV just this morning, but that anger was perfectly reasonable. There were many good reasons to hate the Valor Group and its CEO. Quote, I don't think Kappa I really felt paranoid about something since our last session. So, I guess that is an improvement. He had considered the best way to kill the supposed drunk in case the man attacked him, earlier this morning, but that was not paranoia. That was just experience, and Sunny would be a fool not to pay attention to strangers around him. Sunny continued spouting confident half-truths to give the therapist the impression that he was a stable, well-functioning member of society. Someone whom she should give a clean bill of health and never see again. He wasn't sure if his act was fooling the taciturn beauty, but she did not question his account even once. He was not sure if she believed him or simply didn't care. After a while, Sunny found himself simply recounting his thoughts to her without much pretense. I am bored, I am restless, I want to get back to work. I tried doing things that normal people do in their free time, like going on a picnic or taking a walk in the park. But it has been raining the whole damn month. Staying inside is infuriating because of all the bullshit on the news, and I can't really go to a bar, can I? You told me not to mix sleeping pills with alcohol. I feel like I'm missing something that I never had. So, he hesitated for a few moments, and then asked, can't you just pass me, Doc? We both know that I am only here to comply with what the judge said. And the judge only sent me here to comply with people paying for his vacation home. Of course, Sunny had failed to disclose a few important facts about himself to his beautiful shrink. For example, the fact that he sometimes felt like his nightmares were the actual reality. Or that he sometimes believed himself to be the only real person in the world. Or that he sometimes hallucinated foreign sights, sounds, and sensations, as if he possessed multiple bodies. That was probably because he often spaced out for a few seconds because of the insomnia, falling into bouts of microsleep. Little stuff like that. The therapist looked at him with her usual aloof expression. Do you think you are mentally fit to resume work, detective? Sunny laughed, hiding the literal shivers her sonorous, enthralling voice sent running down his spine. It was probably a good thing that his therapist did not speak a lot. Her voice was just as perilous as her looks, if not more bewitching. He shook his head. Me, mentally fit? God, no, but who the hell is, anyway? I mean, with the way the world is, wouldn't it be stranger if I was perfectly fine? I'd definitely turn around and run if I ever met a person who seemed happy, healthy, and completely sane. She studied him for a while, then nodded and closed her notebook. All right, detective, to be honest, I am not a fan of mandatory counseling myself. Despite the circumstances, however, you did show considerable progress in these few months we have been seeing each other. So, I am ready to report that you are fit to resume service, on one condition. Sunny raised an eyebrow, surprised. This was probably the most he had heard her talk ever since they met. What's that? The therapist studied him for a while, then said in her usual aloof tone. I want you to continue therapy even after you are reinstated. In fact, I insist that you do. You are my patient, and I dislike the idea of leaving things unfinished. I abhor it. Sunny chuckled. So, either I continue to see you, or I can't go back to work. How is that different from mandatory counseling? She shrugged. You can refuse. He remained silent for a few moments, then scoffed. I am sorry, Doc, but you seem to be overlooking something. These sessions were being billed to the Mirage City Police Department. If we continue to see each other after my mandatory therapy is over, though, I'll have to pay for the sessions myself. And I am very sorry to say this, but you are way out of my price range. A peasant like him would not even be let near this exclusive hospital in normal circumstances, let alone receive treatment here. His therapist gave him an impassive look, then sighed and reached into her pocket. Producing a beautifully embossed business card, she offered it to him with a graceful gesture. This is my personal number. We can work something out. Sunny received the card with a stunned expression and looked down at it. Single quote ... Saint, no way, that's her actual name. The saintly therapist was actually called Saint. Learning that fact, Sunny really felt crazy for a moment. Plus, she was giving him her number. Pushing silly thoughts out of his head, Sunny looked at the aloof beauty and cleared his throat. Well, all right, I'll call you when things settle down a little, Doc. With that, he put her card into his wallet and stood up. Thanks for everything, I guess. She nodded indifferently, already turning away to start filling out the necessary paperwork. Don't forget to get your sleeping pills from the pharmacy. Good sleep is the foundation of mental health, detective. Be well. A few seconds later, Sunny found himself outside her office, somewhat lost. He had not expected that getting the stone-faced shrink to give him the clean bill of health would be so easy. It turned out great, though. Shaking his head, he went to the pharmacy situated on the lower floor of the hospital to get his prescription. It was when he was waiting for the pharmacist to fill it, listening to the rain pattering against the window, that there was a loud sound of something heavy falling nearby. Then, a piercing scream shattered the silence. As Sunny turned around, he saw several tall, muscular orderlies running to the source of the noise with troubled faces. Hurry, she got out again. How the hell is she? He lingered for a while, watching the disappear behind a heavy door, then separated himself from the wall he had been leaning on and followed. Behind the door was one of the areas of the hospital where casual visitors weren't allowed. The dimly lit corridor was a complete mess, with several people struggling to get someone whom Sunny could not see behind them to the floor. Just in front of him, he saw an overturned wheelchair, its wheels still spinning. And a pool of red, vivid, glistening blood slowly spreading across the floor. At the heart of the pool was a kneeling nurse who was crying loudly while clutching at her face, red streaks running between her fingers and painting her white uniform into a striking shade of vermilion. At that moment, one of the brawny orderlies was tossed back, colliding with the wall with enough force to make the floor shake. Damn it, how is she so strong? Hold her down, shit. Don't hurt her, you idiots. We're all done for if she gets hurt. Sunny could finally see the cause of the mayhem. The person whom 4 muscular orderlies had been struggling to contain was a slender woman with wavy black hair and a pretty, but cold and sharp face. She was wearing a shredded straitjacket and resisting the orderlies with an amount of strength unexpected from someone of her build and constitution, clearly unhinged. Strangest of all, though, was the fact that her eyes were of bright, vibrant red color. Just like the blood on the floor. Humans were not supposed to have vividly red eyes, but no one seemed to notice or pay it any attention. By then, the orderlies finally managed to push the woman to the ground and were in the process of tying the sleeves of her straitjacket back up. She had been resisting them, still, until her gaze fell on Sunny. He froze. Why does she look so familiar? The woman's eerie red eyes widened a little when she saw him. And then, she suddenly laughed. Her laughter resounded across the corridor, growing louder and louder until it drowned out the pitiful whimpers of the injured nurse. The insane woman seemed to be incredibly amused all of a sudden. She seemed to be having the time of her life. Taking a step back, Sunny pursed his lips and turned around. Just another psycho. There were too many of those around, these days. As he was walking back to the door, however, her laughing voice washed over him. Kill him. You can actually kill him here. Find Athena. Shaking his head, Sunny shut the door behind him and tried to calm his wildly beating heart. The stench of blood was still stuck in his nose, making his hands tremble. The sight of it, damn it. Although Sunny knew that mixing sleeping pills with alcohol was a terrible idea, he suddenly really craved a drink. 2453 ex nihilo. When Sunny left the psychiatric hospital, the world was still being pelted by rain. The sky was discharging a seemingly endless deluge of water, as if wishing to drown the city below. The gutters were overflowing, and the pedestrians were clinging to the sides of the streets, afraid to be given a cold shower by the cars that rushed by. Looking up, Sunny closed his eyes and offered his face to the rain, feeling the flowing water washing away the scent of blood from his nostrils. At least the city will be cleaner because of the rain. But then, there would be heat and humidity. The heat never reached the roots of the city, though, there, in the damp darkness, everything that the water had washed away would begin to rot. The rot would give birth to vast swarms of vermin. Standing there with his eyes closed, Sunny smiled. Swarms of vermin, huh? As if this city had not already been infested by the worst kind of vermin of them all. People. Human vermin thrived in dark places, too, and just like trash, they were thoroughly rotten away from the light. Shaking his head, he walked to his car across the puddles. As he did, the image of the laughing woman with vermilion eyes surfaced in his mind. Why did he feel like he had seen her somewhere? Considering the usual clientele of the hospital, she had to be a scion of a wealthy family. Sunny rarely brushed sides with people like that, so he struggled to imagine where they would have met, unless, of course, he had seen her in a nightmare. A person with vibrant red eyes was exactly like something he would dream of, but how would a woman he had never met end up in his dreams? I wonder whom she wanted me to kill. Sunny sighed. Wealthy people usually ended up in an asylum for 2 reasons, either their family wanted to get rid of them, or they were junkies. Considering the woman's age and unhinged behavior, the latter was more likely. Granted, she could have been drugged up as a result of being put in a psychiatric hospital, not the other way around, but that was none of his business. Find Athena. Wasn't Athena some kind of pagan goddess? Where would he even find someone like that? Come on, you are not seriously thinking about what some crazy lunatic said, are you? Sunny pursed his lips as he climbed into his car. He was pretty sure that he was hallucinating again. That was probably the reason the woman's eyes seemed vividly red. Insomnia and sleeping pills made it hard for him to differentiate dreams from reality sometimes, and the sight of blood was an old trigger. So, did he really have ground to stand on when calling someone a lunatic? As he was turning the key in the ignition, his phone rang. Glancing at the cracked and shattered screen, he smiled darkly and took the call. Yes. Yeah, what? Did he expect to get rid of me so easily? Sorry to disappoint, then. I'll be the today. Then, he paused for a moment, his tone changing subtly. So, there's a new body, my. It is as if someone wanted to welcome me back. Ending the call and throwing the phone on the seat, he looked forward with a grim expression. Quote. Wait just a little bit more, bastard. I'll find you. The car growled quietly and sped away, wading through the rain. You must have really lost your mind, detective. No, you really are crazy. How the hell did you pass the psych evaluation? Hey, you little shit. Look at me. Am I a joke to you? Sunny, who was sitting in the office of the Homicide Division's captain, looked at the grizzled old man in front of him and smiled. A bit, yes. The man stared at him in shock. What did you just say? Hey, Sunny, I could have put your crazy ass in prison for the stunt you pulled off back then. You know that, right? Bastard, you are only sitting here right now because of my respect for the former captain, who held you in high regard. What did she see in you? I have no idea, but I am in charge now. So, you are going to treat me with respect. Do you understand? Sunny nodded. I said that you are, indeed, a bit of a joke to me. I don't know that you could have put me in prison. And yes, I understand. He regarded the new captain somberly. The man was a veteran of the Mirage City Police, but he had been put in charge of the Homicide Division recently, and it was not for a stellar track record or capability. It was because the new captain was a man who knew his place and was trusted to make life easier for the higher-ups. In other words, he knew how to look the other way when needed. The man was not always corrupt, but he could be when orders to be corrupt came from above. Back then, Sunny had indeed made a mess that could have landed him in prison. However, that case was an extremely public one, and getting rid of him would have spelled a political nightmare. So, this aging man was put in the freshly empty seat of the captain and told to make the noise go away quietly. So even if he had wanted to get rid of Sunny permanently, he couldn't have. Sunny did not care one way or the other, though. Well, anyway, I'll say it again. The body that was discovered by the river this morning. Put me in charge of that case, please, sir. The old man ground his teeth. Why the hell would I give that case to you, of all people? Are you positively insane, you little fiend? Sunny stared at him, for a few moments, making the captain shiver slightly, then grinned. I am not insane. I have a paper to prove that I'm not, in fact. As to why you'll put me on that case, you know the answer as well as I do, sir. It's because, unlike the rest of your more compliant subordinates, I will actually solve it. You must be being pressured real bad to catch the bastard by now, aren't you? Once the press catches wind that there's a seventh victim, that pressure will only grow. The captain looked at him somberly. Mirage City was a diseased place at the best of times, but lately, it had been plagued by a new, vile malady. That malady was a demented, but insidious serial killer who left mutilated bodies in his wake while avoiding capture like a ghost. The Nihilist. 2454 Lone Wolf. The Nihilist was the stupid name the journalists had given the unhinged predator who stalked the dark alleys of Mirage City. The killings seemed random, but were too flawlessly executed to be anything except meticulously planned. The murderer did not discriminate in choosing victims, either, so the whole city was on edge. The incident that had led to Sunny being sent to mandatory counseling, as well as to the new captain's sudden promotion, were connected to the Nihilist as well. Shit, even I am starting to call him by that idiotic name. Not only did Sunny hate the idea of giving a sick, cowardly loser a name as pompous as that, but it was also somewhat of a personal slight to him. The killer left absolutely no traces behind and chose his victims through a seemingly meaningless process, so the newspapers had invented an ominous moniker, the Nihilist, to draw more attention to the story and sell more copies. Every time a new victim was found, their advertising revenue exploded. Politicians, meanwhile, gave impassioned speeches to build populist platforms while simultaneously introducing invasive laws under the false pretense of ensuring public safety to tighten their control over people. Many ghouls were reaping benefits from the gruesome deaths of the serial killer's victims. But enough was enough. The same politicians who had used the public panic to score points would start to look like fools if the Nihilist wasn't caught soon. The press could not keep selling the same story over and over again without losing the public's interest. And people in law enforcement who had climbed the career ladder with promises of swift results were growing more and more desperate to produce them. So, no matter how much the new captain disliked and was threatened by Sunny, he could not do anything about it. Because Sunny was indeed the best detective in the division, by far. He had come up through the ranks fair and square, first as a beat cop, then as a detective in the organized crime division. Naturally, he made more than a few enemies in the deeply corrupt and rotten Mirage City Police as a result. The fact that he had never been demoted or dismissed was the best proof of how good he was at his job. Although his methods were often messy, Sunny always brought results. The new captain glared at him silently, seething with fury. But Sunny did not care. He was going to catch the Nihilist, and a mere sycophant was not going to stop him. So, can I go take a look at the crime scene before rain washes everything away? Sir. The old man ground his teeth, then cursed loudly. Fine. I'll give you the case, damn it. Be warned, though, if you fail to bring that sick bastard in, it will be your head flying. I'll feed you to the newspapers and make you a proper scapegoat. Don't say I didn't warn you. Sunny shrugged with a derisive smile. What else is new? I'll get going then. The captain leaned forward. Not so fast, asshole. I said that I'll give you the case, but I didn't say that there would not be strings attached. In fact, I have a condition. Sunny let out a long sigh. Why does everyone want to give me conditions today? Captain, you're not going to slip me your number 2, are you? The old man scoffed. What the hell are you even? Actually, never mind. You can have the case, but I'll be assigning you a partner. Someone has to watch your back, anyway, lest the recent incident repeat itself. Sunny frowned deeply, then said with a hint of barely contained anger in his voice. Like hell you will. You know I work alone, Captain. The captain stared at him with wide eyes. What kind of bullshit are you spouting? Have you hit your head repeatedly on something hard, Sunny? You work alone, what? I don't care what your preference is, this is Mirage PD. There are rules that even bastards like you have to follow. He shook his head, then sighed and waved his hand. If you are worried that it's someone I am sending to spy on you, don't. This is a different kind of situation. She's a good kid, a former national athlete with a rousing story of overcoming adversity. She's the pride of the nation, the pride. You get it, we were all celebrating when someone like that enrolled in the police academy. The old man sighed wistfully. She graduated first in her class, too, and did exceptionally well as a patrol officer. As a result, she was on a swift track to making detective before, well, anyway, now that she is back from an extended maternity leave and freshly promoted to the homicide division, I want you to show her the ropes. And be nice about it. Sunny studied the captain dubiously. Actually, I don't get it. That's the whole reason. The old man looked at him with distaste, then sighed again. Well, and she looks great on a poster. Not that a thug like you will understand the importance of a clean and stirring image. So, when the reporters besiege you, and you know they will, considering the case, I want you to plant her firmly in front of the cameras and take a step back. Better yet, take 3 steps and get out of the shot, you morose bastard. You don't like dealing with public relations anyway, so it's a win-win. He leaned forward and added in an even tone. In any case, it's not a discussion. It's an order. Either you take a partner and play ball, or I'll give the case to someone else. Sunny remained silent for a while, looking at the old man darkly. So, he wants me to bring some washed-out mom around and let her stand in front of the cameras. Everything inside Sunny rebelled against the idea of bringing someone whose only worth was looking comely into the hunt for the nihilist. But he understood that if there was one thing the higher-ups cared about, it was the visuals. A national athlete, with some kind of inspirational story, no less, choosing the police department was a big win for the PR division. Now that she was a proper family woman and a devoted mother, to boot, they were all probably salivating. Softening the image of the traditionally rough and gruff, predominantly male-dominated police force was candy those scumbags could not resist. So what if he had to carry dead weight around? Babysitting a weak, useless, and soft rookie was not the worst punishment. And if that poster girl, well, poster mom, ended up actually dead as a result, it would be on her. Not on him. Sunny cursed quietly and then nodded. Fine, as long as she doesn't get in my way, I won't send her back to play house. The captain gave him a long look. Great, she'll be waiting for you at the crime scene. Now, get the hell out of my office. Sunny stood up and did just that, already thinking about what he would find at the scene of the murder. That damn rain, water could wash away the blood, and at times, it could even wash away the corpses. But it could not wash away sin. Cleansing the city of sin was Sunny's job, and he was quite good at it, even if, in the process, more blood was spilled. 2,455 floodgates. The usually calm river had swelled, the turbulent gray waters climbing high up the desolate shore. The shore itself had become a muddy mess, with its usual liveliness gone. A large area was cordoned off by police tape and hidden behind a scattering of vehicles parked in front of it, with a small crowd of passerby freezing in the rain behind the tape to satiate their curiosity. The blinking lights of police sirens gave the scene an ominous, anxious hue. Climbing out of his car and raising the collar of his jacket to prevent the rain from seeping in, Sunny looked up with a dark expression. The sky was heavy and dark, shedding tears with no reprieve. That was not what attracted his attention, though. The idle onlookers crowding behind the police tape did not worry him, but the body had been found close to a bridge. There was a second crowd on that bridge now, busy snapping photos with their phones. From there, they had a perfect vantage point to the body laying on the edge of the water. Single quote. Damn ghouls. It could not have been a coincidence that the body had been dumped here. Either the nihilist dropped it off the bridge, or he simply wanted people to appreciate his work. If it was the latter, he had found a highly receptive, enthusiastic audience. Catching a patrol officer who was rushing past, Sunny pulled him back. Which asshole? The cop turned around with an angry expression, but then paled and took an involuntary step back. Detective Sunny, sir. You're here. Sunny glared at him for a few moments, then nodded toward the bridge and said in a low, even tone. Are you blind or something? Yes, I am here. So, grab a few friends and go clear the pedestrian section of the bridge off, then block it. Bastard, do I need to tell you how to do your job? If there had been any evidence left on the bridge, it was for sure destroyed by now. Someone deserved to be fired for this negligence, but Sunny knew that nobody would. The cop trembled, then saluted and swiftly disappeared from view. Shaking his head, Sunny climbed under the police tape and headed to the crime scene while putting on black latex gloves. There was a particularly large group of people crowding near the water, blocking his view. He knew that the body was there. As he was approaching, he could hear them talking in hushed voices. Did you hear? Sunny is coming back today. Who? Oh, right, you're new. You wouldn't have met him yet. But who is Sunny, though? Fool, don't you know anything? You can cross anyone in Mirage Police, but you must never, ever cross that guy. He's fully insane, and not in a good way. Sunny, wait, do you mean him? The devil detective, ah, so you do know about him. Well, I guess there's hope for you, still. Don't anger the devil, man. Oh, come on, most of the stories they tell about him have to be lies. I bet I can take him, if push comes to shove. Damn, you turned out to be a moron. Listen, that one time, back in the day when he was in the organized crime division, the boss of the Red Frog gang put a huge bounty on his head. So, 20 or so thugs cornered him in an underground market at night, all armed with knives and baseball bats. Do you know what happened next? What? A proper bloodbath is what happened. I was one of the first officers to arrive at the scene, so I saw it myself. When we opened the doors, it was like a slaughterhouse, man. He took them all down. A bunch died on the way to the hospital, the rest were crippled for life. 20 men, come on, no way. Shit, I was there, okay. He just walked out of that carnage, looking like a demon from hell, gave me a nasty glare, then got into a car without saying a word and drove straight to the bar where the Red Frog headquarters were. The next day, their boss surrendered himself to the police with a box full of evidence. Well, what was left of their boss did, at least. Ignoring the whispers, Sunny unceremoniously pushed his way through the crowd of people. The cops grew silent when they saw him, moving to make way. Noticing someone he knew well, Sunny asked in a somber tone. Where's the medical examiner? The man coughed a few times. Detective Sunny, sir, welcome back. Sunny just stared at him, making the man shiver. I asked you a question, didn't I? The cop lingered for a few moments, then sighed and gestured to the river. There is minor flooding in several areas further downstream, so lots of our guys are delayed by traffic jams. They'll be here soon, but we have a bit of a problem, sir. The water keeps rising, you see. The body was already found halfway in the river, but if it is not moved soon, the current might just carry it away. The other detective has been waiting too. Sunny cursed and waved the man away. Walking through the mud, he approached the corpse. It was indeed laying on the very edge of the water, already submerged halfway. All Sunny could see were the dead man's legs and the lower section of his torso. Leaning down, he grabbed one of the corpse's legs and dragged the body out of the water. A ghastly, bloated face was revealed, missing both eyes. Shit, just as Sunny was about to take a better look, an easygoing voice resounded from behind, making him stop. Hey, buddy, what the hell are you doing? This is a crime scene, for fuck's sake. Who let a random civilian wander in? The voice was unfamiliar and female. So, this is the dead weight, then. Exhaling through gritted teeth, Sunny straightened and turned around, looking at the woman with a chilling expression. Well, or at least he had planned to. Instead, he froze for a moment, then slowly looked up. And then a bit more up. His eyes widened a little. What the actual hell? This is the washed out mom. 2456 short cop, tall cop. When Sunny was informed that his new partner was a freshly PGO-moted detective returning to work after an extended maternity leave, and one being pushed by the higher-ups for PR reasons, no less, he had imagined a comely woman who was well-suited to push the narrative of family values and nurturing care. A maternal figure to soften the harsh image of the unpopular Mirage PD. That woman standing in front of him, however, was so thoroughly not what he had imagined that he was stunned for a brief moment. First of all, she wasn't just standing there, she was positively towering above him, as well as above the rest of the policemen gathered on the muddy shore. One of her ancestors had to have married a troll, or maybe an ogre, some kind of a mountain giant, for sure. Otherwise, he could not explain her staggering height. Despite her questionable ancestry, though, the woman did not look like a troll. Instead, she looked like a supermodel. In fact, she was absolutely stunning, with a captivating face and a figure so gorgeous that it bordered on being deadly. And as if that was not enough, her well-proportioned athletic body was perfectly sculpted, with lean muscles that put even Sunny to shame. The woman was wearing an unassuming athleisure outfit and a raincoat, but he could tell how terribly in shape she was. It was as if a goddess had stepped down from a painting. Sunny blinked a couple of times, slowly reevaluating her opinions of his rookie partner. Looks great on a poster, huh? He might have been a little wrong about the new captain. The man knew what he was talking about. Frowning deeply, Sunny raised a hand and beckoned the woman to lean down. She glanced at him with amusement, then obliged, hiding a paper bag she had been holding behind her back. What? When her face was close enough to hear whisper, Sunny said loudly. Do I look like a civilian to you, moron? I am investigating the body. With that, he pulled out his badge from under the jacket and shoved it up under her nose. She easily dodged the badge and looked at it in confusion. Then, the gaze of her stunning hazel eyes shifted back to Sunny, full of disbelief. She seemed genuinely dumbfounded. Wah, you're the devil detective, but you're tiny. Sunny closed his eyes for a second and took a deep breath. Behind his bombshell partner, there was a choir of frightened gasps. Oh no, we're all done for. He's going to kill her now, isn't he? Quote, no, not Detective Effie, should we call another ambulance? Sunny exhaled slowly through gritted teeth, then opened his eyes and looked at his supposed partner. Yes, I am, and you, what's your name? The woman seemed to have regained her composure. She straightened, saluted, and then gave him a brilliant smile. It's Effie, I'll be in your care, then. With that, she offered him her hand for a handshake. Sunny stared at the offered hand for a few moments, then turned away and concentrated on the corpse. Shut the hell you are and don't get in my way, Effie. Stay where you are and observe silently. She lingered, then retracted her hand and sighed. So grumpy. Ignoring the woman, Sunny knelt near the corpse and studied its hideous, mutilated face. It had not been damaged too much by the water, but both of the dead man's eyes were missing. That was the nihilist's signature. Each of the 7 victims had been killed in a unique way, but all of them were missing their eyes. The sick bastard took them for an unknown reason. The prevailing theory was that he was collecting them as trophies. Sunny was studying the body intently, a little thankful that he did not have to hear retching noises behind him. He had fully expected the rookie detective to become violently sick at the sight of the nihilist's latest victim, but the recently promoted mom detective seemed to be taking the hideous corpse in stride. No, actually, there were strange sounds coming from behind him, after all. Turning around in displeasure, Sunny opened his mouth to say something, and froze for the second time today. His unasked-for partner was standing where he had told her to stand. Her paper bag was open, and she was holding a half-finished sandwich in one hand, chewing with enthusiasm. Sunny stared at her in disbelief. You're eating? His partner grinned sheepishly. Oh, sorry, I have a swift metabolism. So I snack a lot. What the hell is wrong with this woman? Sunny stared at her for a while longer, then shook his head and turned back to the corpse. Bon appetit, I guess. As he reached forward to move the dead man's head a little, the woman asked. What are you looking for, anyway? The cause of death is obviously strangulation. Those bruises on his neck are from the killer's fingers. The guy seems quite athletic, so to strangle him this way, takes a lot of strength. The nihilist usually works with blades, right? I don't think he ever used brute strength before. Can it be a copycat? Sunny grimaced, then let out a long sigh. Did I not say to be quiet? He continued exploring it carefully. Quote. I am looking for anything I can find. And it's not a copycat. The eyes were removed with the same surgical precision, which is not something just anyone can do. Plus, we never disclosed this detail to the press. And that bastard does not work with blades. He works with whatever is at hand. His mo is constantly changing, almost as if he likes to be inventive. His partner whistled. Are we sure that the nihilist is a man, by the way? I thought there were no clues. Sunny remained silent for a while. Not sure, but statistically, most serial killers are men. And, who said that there were no clues? At that moment, he was holding one of the dead man's hands and checking under the sleeve. Suddenly, Sunny grew motionless. Shit, his partner seemed to have finished her sandwich. Coming closer, she looked down over his shoulder and asked in a curious tone. What is it? There, on the dead man's pale skin. A little black snake was tattooed, coiling around his arm. Sunny winced. It's a gang tattoo. This guy used to run with the black snakes. 2457 crash course. It did not take long to identify the victim after discovering the tattoo. His data was in the system due to several juvenile offenses. As for the crimes he had been caught committing as an adult, there were none, because the poor guy was barely an adult. Gods. He's a kid. Sunny gave his new partner a dark look. Single quote. Did she just say, gods, plural? Or had he heard wrong? Come to think of it, his poster girl of a partner looked terribly familiar. He felt like, no, he was convinced that he had seen her in his nightmares, and quite often at that. How could he have dreamt of people he had never met before, though? Sunny sighed and rubbed his eyes tiredly, feeling both exhausted and incapable of falling asleep. Get a grip, damn it, you really are going crazy. Yeah, well, the gangs like to recruit them young. He would know. He had been one such underage thug himself, once. The medical examiner finally arrived, and Sunny beckoned Effie away. Taking off his gloves, he tossed them into a trash bin, missed, then came back with a stifled curse to pick them up and put them into the bin properly. Let's go. We're done here. His unreasonably gorgeous partner, Effie, looked around in confusion. Aren't we going to look around some more? Question the person who discovered the body, check for discarded evidence in the bushes, and so on. Sunny gave her a disgruntled glare. There's no point. The body was either thrown down from the bridge or carried here by the river. In any case, the murder happened somewhere else. The patrol officers will examine the scene and question the witnesses. I doubt they'll find anything, though. The nihilist is quite meticulous. He walked over to his car, unlocked the door, and gestured to the passenger's seat. Get in. Effie gave the ramshackle car a dubious look, then sighed and squeezed herself inside. By the time Sunny climbed into the driver's seat, she was already chomping on another sandwich, which seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Where was she hiding them? Wow, partner, I must say, I haven't seen a crappier vehicle in a while. Where did you get it? A museum? Sunny started the car, then answered in an indifferent tone. Impound lot auction. This unassuming black car had served him faithfully for the better part of a decade. It might have looked like it had seen better days, and drove like it was dreaming of going to car heaven, but it was still fast and reliable. He trusted it more than he trusted most people. Effie laughed. That checks out. Well, anyway, that psycho, the nihilist. He's really something, huh? The corner of Sunny's eye twitched. What he is a pathetic loser. Nothing more, nothing less. His new partner raised an eyebrow. The whole city is being terrorized by him, and despite that, the whole police force can't seem to catch him. How is he a loser? Sunny looked at her briefly, then turned back to the road. I am not going to give you a crash course in criminal profiling, but you need to know one thing about serial killers. Despite how much the media likes to turn them into some kind of great and sinister figures, fundamentally, they are all pathetic losers. His expression darkened. Most of them are products of childhood abuse, mental or physical, usually perpetrated by their mothers. So, they are either working up to committing some kind of perverse matricide, making up for losing their chance to commit it, or trying to relieve the rush of having committed it. There's more nuance to it, of course, but basically, they're disgusting. Oh, and by the way, they are not only losers but also cowards. Most serial killers choose victims who are weaker than them and don't pose a threat. Women, children, the elderly, you get the picture. He remained silent for a while, then let out a resentful sigh. Of course, that bastard, the nihilist, does not exactly fit these criteria. There is no apparent pattern to how he chooses victims, which means that they most likely do not serve as a surrogate for the person he really wants to kill. More than that, he goes after everyone and anyone, weak or strong. His killings appear both premeditated and impulsive, so, trying to profile him is all but useless. Hell, we might as well throw the entire book away when dealing with him. Effie finished her sandwich with a thoughtful expression on his face. So, how are we going to find out who he is? Sunny turned his head and studied her for a while. Eventually, he looked away and said evenly, "We don't need to find out who he is. I already know who he is. We just need to find concrete evidence to put him behind bars." Effie seemed stunned. "What, you know who the nihilist is?" Sunny looked ahead, his eyes turning cold and murderous. "Yeah, I do." She remained silent for a while, studying him with a strange expression. "How come no one else knows, then? Isn't he supposed to be a complete mystery?" Sunny smiled crookedly. "Your second question answers the first. No one knows who he is because no one is supposed to know." Effie blinked a couple of times, then frowned. "Somebody is suppressing the information. Wait, is someone covering for him?" Sunny glanced at her, wondering if she was being sincere or simply pretending not to know. For some reason, he felt inclined to trust his new partner, which was not at all like him. However, she had been pushed onto him by the superiors, which put her true allegiances under question. Eventually, he shrugged. "Someone is covering something, that is for sure. As for who and why, don't ask questions about things you are not qualified to learn, Gyuki. You'll live longer." She opened her mouth to retort, but before she could, he added in a cold tone. "Evidence. Without evidence, nothing you and I might think we know matters. So, keep an open mind and follow the evidence. Inheriting my suspicions will only cloud your judgment." Effie gave him a long look, then giggled. "Wow, partner, you almost sounded like a real detective just now." Sunny grimaced. "What the hell are you talking about? I am a real detective." She remained silent for a while, studying him with a strange expression. Her mask of carefree nonchalance seemed to crack a little, revealing a hint of the keen and astute person hiding beneath. Eventually, Effie leaned back and asked something odd. "Hey, do you really not remember?" Sunny raised an eyebrow, confused. "Remember what?" She hesitated for a few moments. "Who you are." He frowned deeply. "What is that supposed to mean? Are you drunk or something, fool? I am Sunny, a detective from the Homicide Division of Mirage PD. You're Senioji." Effie studied him for a few moments more, then smiled sheepishly, seeming perfectly laid back and easygoing once again. "Sorry, senior. I meant, you're the infamous devil detective, after all. That's all." What a weirdo. Letting out an amused scoff, Sunny pressed a little harder on the gas. He didn't mind weirdos. To be honest, he was not the most sane person himself. 2458 Black Snake Gang. The car had left the more prosperous part of the city and entered the poorer parts. The buildings were older and more ramshackle here, the streets were narrower, and the people were dressed in cheaper clothes. The terrain of the city was uneven, littered with hills and mountains, more so here than in the center. As a result, some of the sloping streets were covered in rushing water, with deep puddles collecting at the bottom. Driving through these puddles in Sunny's old car would have been a problem, but he knew the complicated labyrinth of streets like his own 5 fingers, avoiding the worst of it with ease. That fact had not escaped Effie. She looked around with interest, then asked, "Where are we going, anyway?" He shrugged. "Where else? We are going to the Black Snake Lair." She seemed more amused than frightened by the prospect. Usually, a woman as attractive as her would have been wise to avoid entering a vicious gang's territory, but then again, this bombshell in particular seemed better suited to cracking skulls than most thugs were, so maybe they were the ones who had to be nervous. Just like that. "Wait, how do you even, right. You worked in the organized crime division before, right?" Sunny gave her a sideways glance. "Yes, something like that." He lingered for a few moments, then sighed and said, "Gangs were all over the city not too long ago. Even 10 years ago, they controlled these parts of Mirage City entirely. A single day rarely passed without someone ending up dead, not to mention all the vile crap going on in the shadows. The cops were either on the payroll or too afraid to do anything, and those who did try tended to be disposed of swiftly." Sunny smiled crookedly, remembering his youth. Times change, though. The political climate shifted, and being tough on crime became a rallying cry for the ruling party. So, the police department was cleansed. Mind you, it wasn't cleansed of corruption. The corrupt bastards being paid by the criminals were just swapped out for corrupt bastards being paid by the politicians. Well, and a few capable people managed to get themselves into key positions in all the chaos. He fell silent for a while. Captain Jet was one of them, although she wasn't a captain back then, just yet. Actually, I only ended up becoming a cop because of her. Then, somehow, we ended up being partners in the organized crime division, with her spearheading the crackdown on the gangs. Those were intense years, to say the least. Effie chuckled. Captain Jet, huh, wait, where is she now? Sunny did not answer for a while, his knuckles turning white on the wheel. Eventually, he said in an even tone. She's dead. That was one of the reasons for his sorry state. The main reason, really. And here he was, side by side with a new partner. Sunny looked at the rookie detective somberly. I'm not responsible for her. Putting this woman in front of the cameras might be a great PR move for the Mirage PD, but it also painted a target on her back. She had to know it, but she was still here, so, it was her own decision. He had nothing to do with it. Turning back to the road, he said. Well, anyway, most of the gangs were demolished back then, and those that remain are merely shadows of their former selves. They know their place, doing a bit of dirty business that everyone takes part in, but PGE tends that it's the most abhorrent thing in the world publicly. Others went clean and are now managing slimy, but perfectly legal, businesses. The Black Snakes, though. He frowned. The Black Snake is the only gang that is still somewhat of a real deal. So, when we get there. Effie grinned. Oh, let's do the good cop, bad cop routine. I always wanted to. Can I be the bad cop? Please. Sunny gave her a dubious look. Had she really graduated from the academy at the top of her class? Well, he could easily imagine all the examiners being too distracted drooling at the sight of this particular cadet to give her objective marks. He pursed his lips and shrugged. Sure, you can be the bad cop. The car came to a halt in front of a seedy building. It was not what one would imagine when thinking about a gang's headquarters, though, the lair of the Black Snakes was not a bar, a nightclub, or an illegal casino. Instead, it was an old, seemingly run-down boxing gym. Climbing out of the car, Sunny waded through the rain and approached the front door. There was a muscular man in a training suit hiding under the canopy there, smoking somberly. When he saw Sunny, the man's eyes widened a little. He stood there frozen for a moment, then silently threw away his cigarette and disappeared inside. Sunny picked up the cigarette, tossed it into the nearby trash bin, and followed. His rookie Paji Tennesseer was on his heels, looking around curiously. She's way too relaxed. The woman was either too confident in herself or had a screw loose. Entering the boxing gym, they saw a scattering of rough-looking men. Some were busy abusing punching bags, some were playing cards at a plastic table, some were watching two muscular thugs having a spar in the ring. Some were already moving behind Sunny and Effie, locking the door. He frowned slightly when he heard the sound of the bolt locking into place. One of the men at the table looked back, then smiled and rose from his seat. The guard was standing nearby, having already reported something to him. The man walked over to stand in front of Sunny and Effie. He stared at the former coldly, then shifted his gaze and leered at the latter. Hey there, sweetie. Effie smiled, too, then suddenly put on a furious expression and bellowed. Listen up, assholes. We're from Mirage City PD. I am Detective Wow, and this is my partner, Detective Meh. We are going to ask you some questions, and if you bastards do not spill your guts, well, then, do not blame us for spilling them for you. The crowd of thugs was completely surrounding them by then, glaring at the two cops with an unrestrained hostility. The man standing right in front of them remained silent for a few moments, then looked back at Sunny and raised an eyebrow. Hey to you, too, rat. I must say, you have some nerve showing up here, rat. And you brought your girlfriend, too, what's up with her, anyway? Sunny stared at him silently for a second or two, then shrugged. She's playing the bad cop, you see. The man laughed. Oh, really? Wait, are you the good cop then, rat? Sunny lingered a little, then slowly shook his head. No. With that, he calmly delivered a vicious punch to the thug's face, sending the man crashing to the ground with a torrent of blood spilling from his broken nose. Sunny looked at the surrounding thugs coldly. Quote. I'm the worst cop. 2459 gang violence. What are you waiting for? Kill these bastards. That was what the senior thug had wanted to say. However, since he was choking on blood and clutching his face with both hands, what actually came out of his mouth was a jumbled, angry howl. Sunny was already turning to face the other Black Snakes, Willie his partner was still frozen in shock. Her eyes were opened wide, and there was a stunned expression on her face. Hey, that was not very detective-like. She did not have time to say anything else, because by then, the thugs finally realized what had happened and lunged at them. Tisk, things have really gone to shit after I left. Sunny knew some of these men, even if he had not seen them in a long while. Most were strangers, however, he only needed one look to determine that the Black Snake Gang was not what it used to be. There was no real viciousness in these men, no chilling readiness, desire, even, to take lives or lose their own. They were no killers. The Black Snakes had grown soft and fat on the money they were making from their sordid business without competition, and on the handouts they received from the powers that be, who occasionally needed THEM to do the dirty work. It made sense, really. Those of them who had been the real deal would not have bowed down to the new authority, and therefore, they were either dead or rotting in prison by now. Only the trash remained. So, even though there were close to 20 thugs in the boxing gym, all of them bursting with muscle and well-trained. Really, all Sunny had to do was take out the trash. Instead of waiting for the crowd of black snakes to descend upon him, he dashed forward GD to meet them instead. His heart was cold, and his mind was clear. There was no point in getting worked up about this scuffle, it was simply a chore. Sure, if these 20 men had been determined and really knew how to work together, he would have been overwhelmed in mere moments. But they were men of inferior quality, thugs, not fighters. That gave him the initiative to hurt the first few, and once the rest SAW it, their resolve would be shaken. Their fear and hesitation would become their undoing. Sunny might have been a featherweight, but his fists were anything but light. He knew where to hit to inflict as much pain as possible, and how to deal as much damage as possible. He also had a lot of experience, too much, really, fighting with his life at stake. His first strike connected with the solar plexus of the swiftest thug, sending shock through the larger man's nerves and forcing him to stagger. A split second later, a vicious uppercut sent the thug falling to the floor with a suffocated scream. Diving under the slow and sloppy punch of the next bruiser, Sunny ruthlessly kneed him in the groin, then slammed his elbow on the back of the poor bastard's head. The third was already upon him, and that one had to serve as a lesson for the rest. Catching the man's arm, Sunny moved like a ghost to twist it, and then brought his palm down on the elbow joint. A disgusting squelching crunch was drowned out by a piercing shriek of pain. Strange. Sunny knew himself well, and he knew that he was a fierce fighter. But this felt almost too easy, as if he had become many times more skilled and experienced without noticing. As if fighting 24 thugs who were more than willing to break and maim him was no big deal, inconsequential and pitifully trifling, even. Not in any way comparable to the great and dreadful battles he had fought in his nightmares. Could one's combat skills improve in a dream? Letting go of the screaming man's mangled arm, Sunny push-kicked him in the side of the head and looked at the rest of the thugs with a mad glint in his eyes. 3 down, 17 to, 13 to go. In the time it took Sunny to bring down 3 thugs, which was no more than a few seconds, his oddball of a partner had not been wasting her time, either. Honestly, he had not known how the rookie would react, and did not really care, but what he did not expect was that he would act without any delay at all, joining the fight with the same relaxed attitude. Effie simply grabbed 2 thugs by the sides of their heads and slammed them together, all but cracking their skulls, then delivered a picture-perfect roundhouse kick to a third one, folding the man in half and sending him flying back into his buddies. She finished it all up by simply slapping the 4th one to the ground. Through all of it, she seemed calm and unruffled, amused even. No, she was definitely having fun. What the hell kind of mom is she? Sunny was surprised, somewhat dismayed at the fact that the rookie had taken down one more thug than him, and a little disturbed. That calmness, that judgment, that effortless skill was not something a green and inexperienced detective was supposed to possess. Effie had been an athlete before becoming a cop, and although she did spend some time as a patrol officer, that alone could not have made her into a bloodied fighter. These qualities were something people only developed after a lifetime of conflict and bloodshed. Either Sunny did not know something about his easygoing partner and was thus underestimating her, or she was not who she seemed. His paranoia suddenly rose like a tide, making his eyes narrow. But he had no time to dwell on the strange and ominous incongruity between who Effie was supposed to be and who she really was. First, he needed to deal with the Black Snakes. Seeing 7 of their own go down in a matter of seconds, the thugs were getting serious. Before, they had been planning to beat the 2 cops to a pulp with their fists, probably do some other, way more vile things to them. But now, Sunny saw knives and steel pipes appearing in their hands. He smiled darkly. Don't blame me for being ruthless, then. 2460 on the count of 3. Sometime later, the floor of the boxing gym was littered with groaning, weakly moving bodies. The air was heavy with the stench of blood. Sunny studied his bruised knuckles for a moment, then pushed a finger through a long cut on the side of his jacket and let out an irritated sigh. Now I'm going to be wet from the damn rain. Great. He took off the jacket, revealing his arms, and the scales of the black serpent coiling around them. If Effie was surprised to see a gang tattoo on the skin of her partner, one much more grand and vast than the ones covering the groaning thugs, no less, she did not show it. Instead, she rummaged around the table where the black snakes had been playing cards with a focused expression. Ignoring the alcohol and the piles of money, she picked up a bag of potato chips and smiled in satisfaction. Sending one into her mouth, she asked with curiosity. Not to be a stickler for the rules, but haven't we broken at least a dozen laws just now? Sunny gave her a long look, then scoffed. Who's going to report us? They. The groaning thugs were a pitiful sight, and they were definitely not going to bring the attention of the cops to themselves, let alone let the news that a couple of cops wiped the floor with them spread. Shaking his head, Sunny walked over to the ring, leaned down, and dragged one of the black snakes from under it by the leg. This one was whom he had punched first, the leader of this sorry bunch. The lower part of his face was painted with blood, and his broken nose was swollen, sticking at a wrong angle. Nevertheless, he gave Sunny a hateful gaze. What kind of a damn demon are you? You're dead, rat. When the bosses find out, you're going to die. Sunny gave him a cold look, then reached forward and unceremoniously set the man's broken nose. As soon as a sharp scream turned into a pained groan, he patted the thug on the shoulder. There, I said it for you. We can't have you growing even uglier than you are now, can we? The man shivered under his ruthless gaze, pressing himself into the side of the ring. Sunny remained silent for a few moments, then smiled dangerously. And hey, buddy, I think you need to get your facts straight. I am not a rat. A rat would have gone behind the backs of the bosses to sell them out to the cops. I told them that I was leaving fair and square, looking them in the eye. It's not my fault they weren't inclined to agree, is it? By the way, that is why you have new bosses now. The old bosses didn't scare me, did you think these new losers would? Leaning down, he whispered into the man's ear. Tell them to come find me. Hell, tell them I am waiting. That'll make my day. He straightened and looked at the shivering thug with a complete lack of emotion in his black eyes. But then again, you'll have to be alive to tell them anything. And whether you'll live through the next few minutes, is completely up to you. Effie, who had wandered close, gave him a reproachful look and sighed. Quote. I was supposed to be the bad cop, though. Sunny ignored her. Instead, he produced his cracked phone and showed the thug a photo of the nihilist's latest victim. Recognize him? The man tried to reel back, but he had nowhere to go. Shit, what the fuck is that? Get that crap away from me, damn it. Sunny blinked a few times. What, have you not seen a corpse before? He chuckled, then put the phone back into his pocket and told the thug the dead kid's name. He's one of yours, isn't he? You see, my partner and I came here with sincere intentions, wanting to help you guys bring the murderer to justice. There was no need to be so inhospitable, really. But since things already turned out the way they did, I guess you'll just have to tell us everything we need to know anyway. The thug glared at Sunny and hissed through gritted teeth. Do you think I'll tell you anything, rat? Dream on. Without saying a word, Sunny punched him in the face, dislodging the man's nose again. There was another desperate scream, and Effie winced, taking a step back to continue munching on her potato chips. If I were you, I'd just tell him everything he wants to know. There's a limit to what plastic surgery can achieve, after all. There has to be something left of your nose for them to restore it. Sunny took a deep breath. Did I not tell you to stop calling me rat, bastard? Look what you made me do. Let's try it again, shall we? The kid, tell us everything there is to know about him. When was the last time you saw him? What was his job? Which part of the city did you have him working? Who were his friends? And so on. The thug had raised both hands to shield his face, looking at Sunny through the tears that had veiled his eyes because of the pain. He remained silent for a while, and then barked angrily. I don't know, you asshole. Okay, he's not one of ours. Sunny stared at him darkly. Hey, friend, do I look easy to you? Do you think I can't recognize a black snake mark when I see it? The thug shook his head desperately. No, wait, I mean it. He used to be a junior member, up until a couple of years ago. But we haven't seen him since. Sunny frowned. Huh, since when is the Black Kappa Snake Gang in the habit of losing track of its junior members? The thug lowered his hands and glared at Sunny, then grimaced and spat a mouthful of blood on the floor. What the hell do you know, devil? The gang is not what it used to be. Times have changed, damn it. It used to be that we could just scoop up useless kids from the streets, little shits like you fought for the right to join us. But now, recruiting them is hard, and keeping hold of them is even harder. He grimaced, especially after those bastards opened doors. A damn charitable organization, they house them, educate them, support them financially, and even give them proper jobs. We lost a bunch of junior members to those assholes. This guy was one of the kids who left the gang and became a squeaky clean member of society thanks to them. Sunny and Effie looked at each other. A charitable organization? What charitable organization? The thug cursed under his breath. Mirage City Center for Troubled Youths, it's a private charity run by the Valor Group. You think we can compete with a damn conglomerate? Sunny stared at him for a while, and then smiled viciously. This was what he needed. This was the thread he would pull to unravel the case. Valor Group, huh? Soon enough, they left the upturned boxing gym and returned to the car. Effie seemed thoughtful, or maybe she was just wondering where to get more food. At this point, Sunny could not be sure. He lingered in front of the car, soaking in the rain. She waited for a while, then gave him a confused look. What, are you sad that we hit a dead end? This whole Black Snake League turned out to be meaningless. Sunny shook his head. No, I'm not sad. And it wasn't meaningless, in fact, it was quite a fruitful visit. Then, he turned to the tall beauty and looked at her somberly. Listen, partner, things are going to get interesting from here. So, I need you to tell me something honestly. She smiled innocently. What's that? Not sharing her laid-back tone, Sunny asked bluntly. Who the hell are you? Oh, and think carefully before answering. You might end up dying heroically on your first day as a detective if you don't. Killed by the vicious gang members, it will be a real tragedy. The threat in his tone was apparent. He was saying that he would kill her if she tried to lie. Sunny would have loved for his threat to be a joke, but it wasn't. The nihilist case was far more dangerous than even those terrified of the elusive serial killer suspected. That was because it involved people whom a mere cop like him could not dare to touch. Those people would not hesitate to make a troublesome cop disappear. They could, for example, insert one of their operatives into the case and force the higher-ups of the police department to saddle Sunny with that operative as a partner, to keep an eye on him, and dispose of him if need be. He was not sure that Effie was a double agent, but he knew that she was not who she appeared to be. His supposed partner stared at him for a while, silent. There was a hint of odd emotion in her eyes, unease, uncertainty, fear, but a split second later, it was gone. Effie laughed and reached to slap him on the shoulder with her usual easygoing smile. Her hand remained there, holding him lightly. What are you on about, Sunny? Snap out of it. Sunny tensed, preparing to strike. And then, something odd happened. He snapped out of it. A shiver ran through his body, and he looked around with a startled expression. A strange city, pouring rain, air that smelled neither like the sterile cleanliness of NQSC nor the poisonous miasma of the outskirts. Unfamiliar buildings, a weird PTV of archaic design. Shifting his gaze to the boisterous huntress, Sunny blinked a couple of times. Effie, what the hell?